All right, good evening all, and thank you all for coming out in person. And I know we have some via Zoom as well. So my name is Patty Roberts. I'm the Deputy Director for the City of Port St. Lucie Parks and Recreation Department. You're joining us in person here at the Community Center, and then of course via Zoom. I do want to take a moment and tell you how honored and privileged, and I do say it every HealthyU, which is now, we are on our session 16, if you can believe, of HealthyU. But it really is an honor and a privilege to bring these topics of conversation to you, keeping in mind that it has absolutely nothing to do with me. I am not the subject matter expert on any, well, there's probably one that I could qualify maybe for, but the vast majority of them, I'm not your SME. And that's the beauty of HealthyU, is that we have a fantastic network in this community of healthcare providers who step forward and, as this young lady who will present tonight, come on her own time to share on her subject matter, which tonight is going to be domestic violence. But let me offer a few general housekeeping items, please. At the registration table, there's a voluntary sign-in sheet for anyone who wishes to leave their name. Again, stressing voluntary. And lastly, at the end of the presentation tonight, there will be an opportunity for questions. Those in person are easy. You simply raise your hand, and I will give you the microphone, because you do need to pose your question through the microphone. Otherwise, the people at home can't hear you. And then I'll take the mic back, and we'll move it on to the next question. And we'll give the presenter a moment to respond. For those at home on Zoom, all you do is enter your question through the Q&A. And I will go ahead and read that for the benefit of the people in the room, and then our presenter will address that response, okay? So if I could ask everyone to please turn off your cell phones, I would greatly appreciate it. And also for new first-timers to the community center, restrooms are out these doors and to the left, okay? And then feel free, for those in person, we do have some snacks and coffee and water service for your enjoyment. So a little bit about HealthyU before we go into the actual presentation. HealthyU is a program that is extremely near and dear to my heart. The topics that we're going to be discussing in the next series of conversations over the next several months are ones that are very real and sensitive in nature. Tonight's topic is one of the more sensitive that we will discuss in HealthyU. But we're going to be talking about gender-based violence. We had one session on that in January that touched on human trafficking. Patty did not know the human trafficking issue that is right here in Port St. Lucie until that presentation. Tonight, domestic violence. We're going to talk about LGBTQ+, the autism spectrum, Down syndrome, trauma-informed care, the opioid epidemic awareness training, and dementia, among others. These are some real tough conversations to have, but if they are never talked about, these issues remain lurking and diseases remain untreated. And yes, I have a very personal interest in mental health topics and of a variety of sorts that we'll be discussing through this series of conversations. Just 1,264 days ago, and yes, I do still count in days, my son, Danny Roberts, died from a heroin overdose that was laced with fentanyl. Danny was 22 years old. He died right here in Port St. Lucie. So this didn't happen in northern Florida, southern Florida. It happened right here in our city. And he had struggled for 8 years. He was diagnosed with depression, with anxiety, certainly substance use disorder, and bipolar disorder. And so we as his parents were right there with him throughout his entire struggle, and we fought for him, we fought with him, we fought against him, but the outcome remains the same. Danny is dead from this horrible disease, and I miss him with every breath I take. But looking back on Danny's struggles, as he sought treatment at more than 14 rehabs and recoveries along the way, he was diagnosed with those mental health issues. And once when he was in remission, and I'll never forget this one, I call it remission, that's my term, I'm not a doctor, but he had been clean and sober for about 2 years. I had asked him, he was right in my kitchen, and I asked him, what do you think came first, your mental health issues or your substance use disorder? And he thought long and hard, he really did. He had to think long and hard on that one, and he said that it was his mental health issues that came first. For him, it was anxiety, and I didn't see it. I just saw a teenager, okay? But looking back now, the anxiety was definitely there. And then he said after that, it was a matter of self-medicating to make himself feel better. So that's why HealthyU is here. Again, it's not rocket science. It's simply raising awareness and talking about these issues. Because for 8 years, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one going through this. And come to find out, I am far from alone. I was far from alone. But in all that experience of helping Danny somehow navigate through his 8-year battle with addiction, coupled with my experience both as a youth and an older adult, domestic violence has always been with us, okay, in some form or fashion. Domestic violence happened in my youth, in the small community I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and it's happening today in our large community of Port St. Lucie. So, what is the definition of domestic violence? How does it impact our community? That's the conversation that must take place. And we've got to stop whispering about it. We've got to stop. Did you know that, Deb is in a, violent relationship, volatile relationship? We've got to stop talking about it like that, because these are very real issues that are coming up. And the more we can talk about it and reduce the stigma, I've said it before about Danny. If it can happen to Danny, and it can happen to over 100,000 people in America last year alone from opioid epidemic, it can and does happen to anyone. So domestic violence is not, and the subject matter expert will school you on this, it's not a demographic. It is not, just like opioid, it's not one age group, it's not, one ethnicity, it's across the board, okay? So, and again, throughout the days of COVID, okay, and I'm hoping that we're moving outward there, but the world in which we live in is so high-paced, and it's so chaotic, and it's moving faster than ever before. So I want to talk about domestic violence. It's very real in our Port St. Lucie community. This is the second presentation that I have had the pleasure of hearing from this subject matter expert. She spoke very early on in the HealthyU series, and I found out then that, again, just like with human trafficking, this is here, you guys. Domestic violence is here in our community, and we need to talk about it and learn about it, and that's why I love HealthyU. I'm so excited about some of these new topics because I need to be educated about it, and that's what we're here to do. So today it's my extreme pleasure to share with you an important message from our subject matter expert on the topic of domestic violence. This woman is Monique Coleman with Tykes Teens, and I want to just share a little bit about Ms. Coleman. Ms. Monique Coleman has always had a passion for helping individuals in need. She grew up in South Florida, and moved to Port St. Lucie in 2009. She earned her master's degree from Nova Southeastern University, and she is currently working as the prevention coordinator at Tykes Teens Incorporated. Previously, Monique worked in a local domestic violence shelter as an advocate for 7 years. 5 of those years were primarily working with youth. In 2010, Monique decided to go back to school for human services at Indian River State College. She received her bachelor's degree in 2012. Upon graduating, she began working as a hotline advocate in the shelter, and she fell in love with helping the survivors and their families. She's had the opportunity to grow within the Tykes Teens agency, having held several positions, which each provided her with the experience and training that she brings to us today. And so without further ado, may I present Ms. Monique Coleman from Tykes Teens.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is it on? Hello? Okay. You guys can hear me, right? Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right. So today I am very happy to be here with you guys. I will say that this conversation is not an easy conversation to have. Please be mindful of yourselves. If you have to step out of the room, if you have to maybe turn your computer screen, do whatever you need to do to honor your feelings and how you're feeling. If anyone needs to talk to me afterwards, I am definitely available. So today's presentation, domestic violence. When we talk about domestic violence, it's a lot. So I have came up with some objectives for us to cover for today. First is you guys will learn the legal definition and some statistics of domestic violence. You'll hear me say legal definition because there is a difference. We'll talk about identifying some warning signs, understanding the importance of safety planning, and then also discussing any community resources that are here locally for you guys. So the scope. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 4 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner contact sexual violence, and/or intimate partner stalking with impacts such as injury, fearlessness, post-traumatic stress disorder, use of victim services, contraction of sexually transmitted diseases. 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. This includes a range of behaviors such as slapping, shoving, pushing, and in some cases might not be considered as domestic violence. Patty earlier shared with us that domestic violence does not see race. It doesn't see your ethnicity. It doesn't see your background. It doesn't see you as an individual, right? It doesn't just affect one person. It doesn't affect one particular gender. So that's why I wanted to show you guys that domestic violence is not just a women's issue. It's everyone's issue. So when we talk about what is domestic violence, so the legal definition, domestic violence means assault, aggravated assault, battery, aggravated battery, sexual assault, sexual battery, stalking, aggravated stalking, kidnapping. I mean, you guys can see where I'm going with this, right? Can anyone tell me what's missing from this definition? So she said emotional abuse, yes. This basically is saying from one household member to another household member. So this could be brother and sister, it could be husband and wife, it could be mom and kid, father and child. It doesn't necessarily mean intimate partner, right? So when we look at the working definition, this is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and any other abusive behavior, part of a systematic pattern of power and control. So to put it simply, domestic violence is where you have one person who is trying to gain and maintain power and control over the other partner. It's this cycle that they're going through, and they're using different tactics to continue to keep that control. So when we talk about types of abuse, yes, there's physical abuse, there's sexual abuse, emotional and psychological abuse, coercive control, financial abuse. It's not always easy to determine in the early stages of a relationship if someone will become abusive. Domestic violence intensifies over time. Abusers may often seem wonderful and perfect initially, but will gradually become more aggressive and controlling as the relationship continues. Each relationship is different, and not every relationship will follow the same pattern. Regardless, abusers purposely use numerous tactics of abuse to instill fear in the victim and maintain control over them. So again, something to kind of think of, because you're like, well, how will I know if someone is abusive? Think about those little red flags. When you're in a relationship with someone, or when you're meeting someone, how you meet this person, sometimes there's little red flags. When I was talking with kids, with teens, about teen dating violence, and we're talking about unhealthy and healthy relationships, I would pose the question, is jealousy cute in a relationship? And most of them like, yeah, it's cute. And I said, why? Why is jealousy cute in a relationship? And I would say that jealousy is like a little seed. Once that gets planted into your relationship, because then it becomes, you're not my girlfriend, you're not my boyfriend, you're mine. And that jealousy how can you have trust in a relationship when you're jealous? That it doesn't work, right? So I talk to them and say that, jealousy is like a little seed that once it's planted, anything will water it. If you're walking down the hall with a friend that's of the opposite gender, that could be something. It could be the same gender. That could be something that will water it. Oh, I fell asleep last night, so I didn't answer your call when you called. That could be something that waters it. So when we're talking about a healthy relationship, jealousy does not belong. And so this is the power and control wheel that most domestic violence advocates use in describing what abuse looks like. Now, some people, they may not experience all of these. They may only experience one, and that's enough for them to move away. When we talk about abuse, and we'll get to this a little bit later, it's not easy just to walk away. And we have to understand that. We have to be understanding because, and I'll share this, there is a Netflix series, it's a limited series, I think it only has like 10 episodes. It's called The Maid. And I haven't gone through the entire series, however, it definitely shows the struggles that victims face, because it's not easy. And in one of the episodes, it shows that one of the ladies ended up going back. And the one person, she's like, why did she go back? Why? So, and the lady who was working there, the advocate there, she said, it took me 5 times. It took me 5 times. So when we talk about this, it could be, like I said, using the children, making her feel guilty about the children, making light about the abuse, not taking their concerns seriously. Oh, I was just drunk. I wasn't myself, or you're overreacting. That never happened. Making all the decisions. And I know here it says her, but again, it does not see gender. It could be the other way around. We see this a lot. And to be honest with you, none of this is okay. So when we talk about warning signs, your partner bullies you, threatens you, controls you, accuses you of having an affair, blames you for the abuse, criticizes you, tells you what to wear, how you should look, threatens to kill you or someone even close to you, even a pet. Throws things at you, punches the wall when angry. Talking about the show, the girl, she said, well, he never really hit me. He just punched the wall. And her friend said, well, that wall could have easily been your head. You never know, what can happen. It starts off by them just punching things or punching the wall, but it can continue. Yells at you or makes you feel small. Your partner controls your money, so they keep cash and credit cards away from you. One of the things that being working in the shelter, one thing that I saw is that some of the women, they literally just came in with the clothes on their backs. There was no money, so trying to, gather, maybe because they weren't working. They weren't able to work because they had children. Puts you on allowance, makes you explain every dollar. Your partner cuts you off from family and friends. Isolation. That's one of the big things they do, is isolate you from your support. Keeps close tabs on you, where you go, who you with, embarrasses you in front of others, makes you want to avoid people, physically abuses you, attacks you with weapons, keeps you from eating, sleeping, or even getting medical care. This does involve birth control, which you'll see here. Partner sexually abuses you, forces you to have sex, makes you feel like you owe them sex, won't use condoms or any other form of birth control. So we talk about all these warning signs. So a person can experience any of these things, and we as a community, we ask, well, why does she stay? Or why does he stay, right? Why do they stay? And the thing about it is, it's not about why they stay. It should be, why do they abuse this person? Why do they feel the need to control this person in this way, right? It's not about why. It's where we, like, when we think about when someone commits a crime, we're not asking, well, who made you do this? Like, what led up to you wanting to do this, right? We're saying, okay, you did this. Okay, now you're going to get in trouble for this, right? We have to look at why a victim stays. We have to look at, where are we? What can we do to help the situation? What can we do to prevent years from now, women, men, whoever it is that's going through this, what can we do to where this thing happens and now they automatically know that this is a resource? They automatically know that, you know what, this isn't right. I'm going to call a friend. And that friend is going to know automatically what to do, or knows how to get help. So when we talk about why do they stay, there's lots of complexities with this. Family dynamics. The first 72 hours when a victim leaves is the most dangerous, because their abuser is looking for them. This may be the first time that they've actually left. And what happens is that abuser is now looking to, they're like, wait, I'm losing control. Other people are going to find out what's going on in our home. A lot of families don't discuss what's going on at home because, what happens in our house stays in our house. This is trickled down to the children, to where you don't get help. Then also, too, what if I did get help, but then I went back? What do I do now? Are people going to look at me differently because I went back? So finances, that kind of plays a part in it. Childhood abuse. 1 in 15 children are exposed to an intimate partner violence each year. 90% of these children are eyewitnesses to the abuse. Children's immediate reaction to experiencing domestic violence includes generalized anxiety, sleeplessness, aggression, difficulty concentrating, nightmares. One of the things that I can say is, with working in the shelter and seeing the kids come in, I've seen all different ages, and when I saw them, it was like most of the time it was so heartbreaking. But to talk to them and to find out what they know, because I'll ask the mom, are they aware of what's going on? And a lot of times she's like, no, I don't think so. I hid it. And I talk to the kid. The kid's like, well, yep. Nope. Mommy was scared, so we came here. I'm like, okay, well, what's here? What's this place? It's somewhere where daddy's not going to find us. And that broke my heart, because you're thinking about, like, what has this kid seen? What has this kid imagined? Like, imagine this kid going to bed at night. I remember one of the kids, they said, yeah, it wasn't safe for mommy anymore. And it's like, wow. So when we talk about domestic violence and how it creates a violent and hostile environment, this does affect your children. This does affect them. A lot of times when you like to say that you hide they see. They can tell when something's not right. They see these things. So you have substance abuse and trauma. Sometimes they're not able to seek treatment, or the partner is the person that's taking them to get the treatment. If they leave, then what? Who's gonna provide that for me? Law enforcement. So there is locally a community coordinated response. This is throughout the state of Florida. These programs are in place to help those that are at a higher risk for homicide. The thing about it is, when we talk about law enforcement, a lot of people don't necessarily think that they're going to go to law enforcement because it's not physical, right? It's maybe not physical. So that's where, we have to look at, okay, how many times have they called 911? If a police report has came in and it was a domestic dispute, what is in place? Like, how could we help this person? It's not just about referring them and giving them a phone number. Sometimes it's about following up. I had a friend who, she was going through domestic violence in her home, and it was emotional abuse. It was emotional and financial abuse. And early on, I caught on to that. And I told her, hey, you probably want to look into this. She was in a different city, so I found the domestic violence shelter that was closest to her, and I gave her their phone number. I gave her their phone number. And she didn't call. But then she called me and was upset with him because this time he accidentally tripped her and she twisted her ankle. And so again, what did I do? I gave her that phone number. I told her this is not okay. And she was trying to justify and say everything. And I said to her, I've seen this happen. It's only going to get worse. Well, it did get worse. She ended up they had gotten into a fight. She ended up having to call 911. He went to jail. I explained all of what would happen to her. I talked to her about, her and the children possibly going into shelter, explained everything to her. And I'm saying this because, yes, I was being a friend, but also, too, I knew that this was a decision she would have to make. She ended up dropping the charges and took him back. And she shied away from me because she thought that I was going to judge her. She thought that I was going to be upset because she didn't take my advice. And I told her, whenever you're ready to take that advice, you will. I can't force you. I can't be upset because I'm not living your life. Whenever you're ready for that advice, you let me know. And finally, she did. Finally, she did. It took a couple years. And even after, I'm like, you need to talk to. I said, you need to talk to someone. Your kids need to be able to talk about what happened. Don't just suppress it, because guess what? You have a boy and you have a little girl. You don't want your son growing up thinking that it was okay for how daddy treated mommy, and you don't want your daughter growing up thinking that this is okay. So you need to get help for them as well, because he's out of the house, but you guys still have to live with that. So when we still talking about complexities, we have to look at our societal views. We have to shift our language from being victim blaming. Victim blaming occurs when the victim of a crime or any wrongful act are held entirely or partially responsible for the transgressions of the crime committed against them. Victim blaming is prevalent in mainstream America culture. It's found in music, films, TV shows, social media posts. You see it everywhere. One of the biggest things, why didn't she just leave? Why didn't he leave? We have to change our language. We have to start holding the perpetrator accountable for their actions. When we start to do that, when we shift to that, I guarantee you that more victims will start to come forward and start to share their stories and start to heal. So why do they stay? Fear that the abuser's actions will become more violent, maybe become more lethal if the person attempts to leave. You might have unsupportive family and friends. Who's going to go back to someone and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. Most of us shy away from that, right? We don't want to deal with, oh, yeah, that person was right. And if we start to shift our language, change the way we view things, then it'll be okay. Because sometimes, how many times did you fall off the bike when you were riding it, when you were first learning to ride a bike? Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we need a little extra push, or we need a little extra support. Knowledge of the difficulties of single parenting, reduced finances, financial circumstances. The victim feeling that the relationship is a mix of good times, love, and hope, along with the manipulation, intimidation and fear. Lack of knowledge or access to safety and support. Fear of losing custody of any of the children if they leave, divorce their abuser, or fear the abuser will hurt or even kill the children. Lack of means to support themselves and or their children financially, or lack of access to cash, bank accounts, assets. Lack of having some place to go. Imagine having multiple children. Where are you going to go? Who's going to take you in? You have no friends or family that can help, no money for a hotel. Maybe the shelter is full, or if there's a limited stay. Like, where am I going to go? If I go to this shelter and I'm only there for 6 to 8 weeks, that's only really like less than 2 months. How am I going to get a job, save money to get an apartment after only 6 weeks? That's not feasible, right? That's not realistic. So they might just decide to stay. Like, I might as well just stay here and, try to find a job while I'm here and go from there. Fear that homelessness may be their only option if they leave. Religious or cultural beliefs or practices may not support divorce, or may dictate outdated gender roles and keep the victim trapped in the relationship. Belief that two-parent households are better for the children despite the abuse. So when we talk about getting help and safety planning, we have to think about empowerment. One of the things we have to do is give the victim back their power. Allow them to be the captain of their ship. We have to allow them to gain that control back. They've lost all control in just about every aspect of their life. giving them that autonomy, letting them know that this is your life. I'm here to just provide support and a listening ear. And then lastly, support. When someone's going through a storm, your silent presence is more powerful than a million empty words. This is something that I kind of live by, because sometimes I don't need someone just saying, "Oh, it's going to be all right. I really don't know what to say," but, because sometimes they may say something and it's like, no. It's going to be all right, or, maybe they can get anger management and you guys can work it out, and it's, that's not what I want to hear. Just being there for me, just listening to me cry, listening to me be there, like just being a friend. Sometimes that's all we need. Sometimes we don't have to find the words. And a lot of times we don't reach out to our friends. We may have heard that, oh, such and such is going through this with her husband, or this person's going through this with his wife or his girlfriend. We hear about it, but we don't go and say anything to them because I don't know what to say. A simple, hey, I just want you to know that I'm here for you. Anything you need, I'm here for you. That can make a world of difference. So when we talk about safety planning, you definitely want to know your resources. We're going to talk about that. Understand the lethality of your situation. Think through the specific safety risks that you may face. Take steps for minimizing your risk and promoting your safety. I always like to say safety planning is not something you can do by yourself. You definitely want to talk to someone, because they may be able, and talk to an advocate, because they may be able to see something that you may be missing, right? So when you're trying to safety plan, you definitely want to establish some type of independence. Maybe having a savings account, a credit card, something that's in your name that your partner does not have access to. You might want to leave extra money, keys, copies of important documents, medicines, or clothes with someone you can trust. If you don't have anyone that you could leave those important things with, have a hurricane bag. Now, a hurricane bag is going to include your partner's things in there as well, because if they ever found that bag, you could just say, hey, if, we live in Florida, a hurricane comes and we got to evacuate, we just grab this bag and go. Not necessarily knowing that that's your grab bag and go. Determine safe people you can stay with if you plan on leaving. Determine what shelters are around. Review and rehearse your safety plan. Like I said, keep a packed bag. Plan where you will go if you have to leave. So when we talk about community resources, there is a certified domestic violence shelter here locally. This is the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So if you call this number, no matter where you are, it will connect you with the state and local resources. DCF is Department of Children and Families. They cover our local, they cover the state of Florida. So if you call that number, it will put you in touch no matter where you are. If you're in Martin County, St. Lucie County, you're in Pinellas County, they will connect you with whatever's there. Our local certified domestic violence shelter is Safe Space. They have one certified shelter, and I believe they are opening up another certified shelter here on the Treasure Coast. So this is the number that you can call. This is the number that you can give to a friend if they are needing any services. Rape Crisis Center, this is the phone number. A lot of times, we do have to address that sexual abuse does happen. Rape does happen. And then other local domestic violence awareness agencies, you have We Leap and the Ruffs Foundation. Both of these organizations do a lot in the community. I know I've personally worked with both of these organizations. So, and then lastly, I raise up my voice, not so I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard. Thank you.
Awesome. Wasn't that some good stuff to hear? Some good data and some good resources, and I hope it was of value to you. I believe we have one question in the Q&A.
Okay.
Monique, do you see many kids or teenagers that have been a victim or witness of domestic violence?
So when I was working at the shelter, yes, there was a lot of kids, and even what was a little challenging is because I would see the children in shelter, and then when I would go to the schools to do our teen dating violence program, I would see the kids there. And I would tell them in shelter, like, hey, if you see me at school, I'm not going to say I know you. If you come up to me, then I'll say hi to you, but I'm not going to approach you first. And so I remember this one girl, she was in the shelter, and she would talk to me in shelter, but when I was in class with her, she would not say anything. She would even act like she didn't want to be a part of the conversation. And I had to ask her, I was like, dang, what's up? Like, I thought you liked me in group. And she's like, I just don't want anyone to know that I'm here. I was like, they won't know. They won't know. I said, people know me from all different walks of life. And so after we had that conversation, the next time I was in class, she was fine.
Okay, and that was, if so, how many?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, at one point this was when I was working in shelter. At one point, we had over 30 kids in shelter. So
wow.
A lot. I mean, if I had statistics, I would say it would be pretty high.
Very good. And then the question was, and what do you say to them, which you just kind of covered that as well. So hopefully we addressed your questions there. If you have any more, put them in through the Q&A. This is great work. And okay, now I'm going to move out, and bear with me. I'm a little slow, but I'll get there. We have a question from the in-person, and I'll give you the microphone. You ask your question, and then Monique will respond.
Hi, Monique. I'm Christine. I have two questions regarding the resources. I have experienced and want to know if we do have any qualifying attorneys in the state of Florida that can deal with toxic relationships and going through a divorce.
So I'm going to refer you to Safe Space. That is going to be one of your best helps. Safe Space will be able to either refer you out. They're pretty awesome. So it's the local certified DV shelter.
Okay, and then in my experiences, I have found, and I want to know if there are any specific Florida laws regarding domestic violence that are upheld in the courts.
So if I don't want to go all the way back because that's going to be, I'm not for sure. I think you would need to speak with an attorney, and like I said, Safe Space may be able to help you a little bit more with that. I may have to ask you a little bit more into that question.
Okay, after.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Perfect. You bet. Another question.
Nowadays we come across a lot of people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol, and it's also among the youngsters, 20s, 30s. In fact, it starts younger. I've come across some people who get into relationships, and then they have subjected to domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the boys, usually, whose parents may have abused him. And then, so how can you approach the other side of it? The perpetrator, as they call it. So if you can, because sometimes in a relationship, it could be because it's like if two pillars hold up a temple or a place, and if both are weak, they both collapse. So
Right.
one is strong, because usually relationships, you get a week gets into another week because they have got into, trauma, and they seek
Right.
someone where they could be helped.
Right.
He's also gone through trauma. So it's,
So
is there any way in future whether, the other side could be addressed?
So I do know that there's like anger management classes, but I mean, to be honest with you, you do like mental health. When we talk about mental health awareness, you definitely have to get to the root of the problem, right?
Yeah.
We have to, like, there's a saying, hurt people hurt people.
Right.
So if we figure out like what you're going through, what services we can offer to you, then we can address, going forward. I feel as if like a lot of times we suppress things. We don't want to deal with certain things. And unfortunately, that's just like sweeping leaves under a rug. You keep sweeping them under the rug and eventually they're going to explode. So I definitely feel like some kind of mental health counseling, some kind of therapy needs to happen, because we have to, get to the root of, what's happening with you, what's causing you to react to this. And I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes that in itself is not easy to do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons why a person, and you might have someone that did not experience abuse in their childhood, but they are an abuser. So, you gotta, it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult to ask that, but they definitely have to work on themselves.
Yeah,
And admit
right.
that this is not okay.
Yeah, and the early signs, on the other hand, for the person who is being abused, you see? So they could be aware of it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for the great questions. Anybody else while I'm out here?
Thank you.
Positive remarks about how everything was covered in the presentation. Awesome. So I want to thank Monique for coming with us tonight on this journey. It is, again, the second time that we've covered this, and it never ceases to amaze me that, people say we don't have this issue in our community, but guess what, folks? We do.
We do.
We really do, and we need to talk about it. And that brings me to a good segue, if you will. As you know, mental health is my passion. And one of the gentlemen, one of them in the house here, was asking about support groups. And I do want to offer out, it was a huge day here at the community center on Tuesday. We rolled out our first ever NAMI Connections recovery support groups. They come right here to this community center weekly on Tuesdays from 2 o'clock to 3:30. And there's 2 facilitators, and they see a maximum of 15 people, okay? And I personally went down to welcome the facilitators, because that's who I worked with in order to get this to happen. And of course, then I left when people were starting to come in. But what a wonderful, and you mentioned it, they were like all over the fact that, hey, for the last year, we've been trying to do support groups via Zoom. And I can't fathom that, So they said, what a great opportunity. We are in person. And so weekly, Tuesdays, 2 p.m. right here at the community center. In order to attend, there is a flyer. Each one in the room got it. For those of you on Zoom, go to pslparks.com/HealthyU. And you'll see the flyers there, and you'll see the NAMI support group flyer. And the contact there is Kimberly Comer, and her name and number is on the flyer. So reach out to her, make sure that, and she'll get your name and number, and then you guys can join the group next Tuesday. So that just started off on Tuesday. And I do welcome people to, I also gave everyone in the room a copy of the HealthyU 2022 programming. And again, for those of you at home, it's on pslparks.com/HealthyU, because you'll see we're bringing some new topics this year. In fact, a shout out for next month is Wednesday, March 2nd, 6:30, right here in this room and via Zoom for the time being anyway, via Zoom. We're going to be talking about the subject of Down syndrome. And we'll have a gentleman, Atari Koenig, who is the CEO of the ARC of St. Lucie County. Now, that will be the first time that HealthyU has talked about Down syndrome. And I am so looking forward to it. Really looking forward to that presentation. And then the next section after that is the autism spectrum. We in our department in Parks and Rec, every new playground that we're constructing, and we do I wish we could do more, but we are doing a number of new playgrounds, are all designed to be inclusive for children of all abilities. So I'm really interested in the autism spectrum. And then we cover some more topics. So please feel free to take home that flyer. And then next March 2nd on Down syndrome, we'll be covering that as well. And lastly, never once, and I've got a couple people via Zoom and in person who've been to very many of each of the HealthyU sessions. So you guys can be my testament. HealthyU never sells anything. We are not here to sell a fitness membership. We're not here to sell rounds of golf. We're here to have a conversation and be educated by a subject matter expert here. However, throughout the pandemic, I myself have learned that you don't have to, again, everybody's different, but you don't have to join one of our yoga classes to get the benefit of mental health and well-being. I've got 48 parks. Go out and walk, just move, just get out there. You will feel better. I guarantee you will. And to do that, for everyone in the room, I gave you Inside the Outdoors, which is going to list all of our parks, all of our programming. Have at it. Join, don't join. But there's opportunities for you to improve your mental health in our outdoor parks, in whatever setting you might want. And then I also gave you a copy of the February calendar. We've got some really cool events and programs coming up. Feel free to join us. Again, for Zoom, those are available on our website as well. So if there are no further questions, anything else on behalf of Monique, anything? I want to thank Monique for her time. I want to thank all you guys for coming. Thank you. And Monique did share at the top of her presentation that she is available if you had any questions afterwards. So I want to thank you all for coming and hope to see you next month. Thank you.